Alright, so good afternoon once again. This is actually the 7th week of Empowerment Technologies. So last week, I was able to at least discuss the Google Sheets 101. So natuto kayo kung paano at least gumamit ng Google Sheet and you were able to perform the task na ginawa ko doon or binigay ko doon. So for this week, this is another topic and an entirely new topic for everybody. And we will talk about what we call the graphic design. So this is only an introduction to graphic design and this module is somehow plenty. So medyo madami tayong i-discuss dito kaya it's really important na makinig po tayo because by the end of this module, gagawa rin kayo dito ng poster in which you need to perform using a certain tool or kung may alam kayong pang-edit ng mga poster, mas maganda. Pero syempre, I will introduce a specific tool for us to use in order for us to perform the performance check for this module. So let's talk about graphic design. First of all, what this module is about. So graphic design is actually sought after skill that can help produce high-end designs to promote brands at a national and international scale. Adding graphics to your design can help you showcase your creative skills and make a good impression on your clients. So, graphic design courses, especially itong part ng module natin dito, can really equip you guys with the necessary skills to apply for a position in the fields of advertising or marketing across all business sectors. Now, this module will take a look at the basic graphic design elements and principles that can help you create a design in a very stylistic and customized manner. So, kung nag-wonder kayo, by the end of this module kasi, you should be able to at least be familiar with the basic principles and elements of visual arts or graphic design tinatawag natin. You will also develop some basic skills using some tools na i-introduce ko rin and the theory that is being used in design process. Now, to understand, you should be able to at least understand as well the creative processes. You can also develop some techniques and methods for creating methods of creative problem solving. Number 4, you will be introduced to the following terminologies, the different terminologies necessary to communicate the concepts and theory in art and design. And lastly, you will be creating or you should be able to create at least a simple computer-based projects either using Adobe Photoshop, Canva, or what we call the Photopea, in which we will discuss in the next meeting. So, just to ask you some question, do you actually consider yourself as a creative person? Diba? If yes, mas maganda yan, diba? Actually, in reality, all of us are creative. It's just that hindi lang natin siguro na-unlock for now because we are somehow afraid to, try being a creative person. Now, if you are a creative person, it will be very advantageous sa part mo kasi nga you will be having a separate skill na pwede mong magamit in the future. And because of that, we will actually talk about and know the difference between the word graphic and of course the word design as well. And do you think, is it really an advantage to have a skill related to graphic design? We will try to answer those questions later on, especially dito sa topic natin. Now, to actually start our discussion here, let's talk about what we call the principles or the elements and principles of graphic design. Alright, now when we say graphic design here, first of all, we need to define both of the terminologies, graphic and the word design as well, before we define graphic design as a whole. When we say graphic, we are actually referring to the visual side of anything. So kung ano yung una nyong nakikita, that alone is graphic. Diba? So sa visual side, it focuses more on the art, imagination, expression. And usually, you only care about the way on how it was actually done or written or, such as drawing, painting, engraving, or lettering. Pag sinabi kasi natin graphics, usually it gives clear and explicit detail. You don't really care for now about how it was being made, what's the meaning, and other literal things na nakikita nyo doon sa painting, for example. You only care about the visual. That's what we call the graphic. Pero when we say design naman, it's the way on how you decide the look and the function of something before it's actually being made. So this time, you focuses more on thinking, problem solving, practicality. So kung paano siya nagawa, 'di ba? Kung paano siya na-execute, ano yung mga ginamit na techniques, what are the different guidelines that the artist actually considered when creating and that specific artwork or graphic design work. Now, by having the definition of the word graphic and the word design, we can now safely define the graphic design here. When we say graphic design, we are talking about the way on how we organize and present those different information developed through what we call the creative process for a particular function or particular reason. Diba? Graphic design is also a balance of artistic expression and, of course, practical application. Now, if you are planning to be a graphic designer later on, kung gusto nyong magkaroon ng extra income, for example, there are some different graphic design jobs that you might want to consider. Ito itong mga kagandahan dito sa graphic design kasi this is actually one of the highest paying jobs sa as international. Lalo na tawag dito, you can do graphic design jobs even at home, 'di ba? So you will accept some projects from clients tapos sila na yung bahalang magbabayad sa iyo ng depende kung ano yung pinag-usapan ninyo. So you can be in the advertising companies na meron tayo. Kung mahilig ka sa mga branding, yan, logos, dito ka. You can also be a web designer, interface designer, magazine layout, yan, paper engineering and packaging, mga TV, motion graphics, infographics, signage, art and installation, and digital arts. Especially ngayon na campaign period po, napakadaming mga politician ang nagsisik ng mga graphic designers to actually, design their campaign materials para dito sa upcoming election natin. So, if it happens na marunong kang mag-edit, for example, pag sinabi kong edit, yung legitimate na edit, hindi po yung parang, yung pindot-pindot lang, sorry to say. Pero, when I say legitimate edit, meaning you know the concepts, you know the rules, you know the principles, yan, you know the technicalities of that specific softwares. Although, technically, it's still graphic design, but then, syempre, we are talking about the professional works naman. Diba? So, if you are considering to be a graphic designer, napakalaki po ng income dito sa pagiging graphic designer natin. Yan. Now, let's actually talk about elements of graphic design. Yan. Pagka sinabi kasi nating elements of graphic design, it focuses more on the visual side. So, ito yung graphic side. So, ano yung una nating nakikita kapag tumitingin tayo sa isang painting, for example? Those are the different elements. Elements of graphic design consists, the following: color, line, shapes, form, texture, typography, and space. Now, first element of graphic design is actually what we call color. Ang color kasi, this is the most common and the most obvious thing or element na nakikita natin, 'di ba? Ito yung pinakauna kasi nating napapansin. Usually, the color entices a certain mood or emotion. And hindi ka lang basta namili ng color, but then you need to have at least a knowledge on how to use what we call the color theory or apply the color theories. When we say color theories, it's the practical guidance to color mixing and the visual effects of a specific color combination. It uses color wheel as a basis. So alam naman na natin to, di ba? Elementary pa lang tayo na introduce na sa atin ang color wheel. Diba? And meron tayong different parts ng color wheel. First of all, we have primary colors in which it cannot be mixed using other colors. It usually consists of red, blue, and yellow lang po. Diba? Red, blue, and yellow. It's the basis for other colors. When we say secondary colors, yan, we combine two primary colors. So when we combine this color here, the yellow and the red, we will have orange. When we combine red and blue, we will have purple. When we combine yellow and blue, we will have green. Those are secondary colors. Pag sinabi naman natin tertiary colors, it's the combination of a primary color and a secondary color. So meaning, if you add red plus green, for example, red plus green, or blue plus orange, Yan. Hindi siya possible. But then, ang magiging possible lang dito is when you add yellow and a secondary color orange, it will have a yellow-orange color or tone. Yun yung tinatawag natin na tertiary colors naman. And since we are talking about the color wheels, these are the different color names na meron tayo. For example, sa tertiary color, di ba? We often call that as red-orange. So, the alternate tertiary color name is vermilion. Pag red-purple, it can be called as magenta, amber for yellow-orange, yellow-green for chartreuse, blue-green for teal, blue-purple for indigo, or simply violet. Yan. So, yun yung mga alternate tertiary color name. We also have different categories for color wheel. It can be warm and cool. Sa my right side, dito yung mga warm and cool. Sa my left side, dito yung cool. Sa my right side, dito yung warm. We also have pastel and neon, and we also have the neutral, the black, white, gray, and brown, which is sa color wheel, nandito yun sa may part na gitna. Okay, mamaya magpapakita ako ng good application ng color wheel para mas maintindihan natin kung saan at paano siya i-apply ng maayos sa mga design natin. Let's actually now talk about what we call the color dimensions. Let's define hue, value, and saturation or HSV na tinatawag natin. Yan. When we say hue, it's actually other term with color. Usually, it can be interchangeable with the term color. So, when I say color, I am also referring to the hue. Yan. Pero when I say value, I'm referring to the lightness and the darkness of a color. So, pag sinabi kong, please add more value sa color green mo. Meaning, I am referring to, adding the lightness or brightness either by adding neutral colors such as white or black, yung mga ganyan. So, that's value. When we say saturation, I am talking about how bright a color is. Usually, it can be changed by adding more gray naman. So, kapag may blue ka dito, yan, pag nagka-add ka ng more gray, yan, it will be more saturated in this case. Yan. We also have what we call the color palettes. Kapag ka-color palettes naman, it is limited to 2 to 4 colors. At least one dark color, and at least one light color. So, it can also contain one neutral color. This is actually a good practice for those artists na gustong makakreate ng napakagandang colors or napakagandang graphic design with outstanding colors. So, by using color palettes, at least natatrack mo kasi nagiging mas ang tawag dito, consistent yung paggamit mo ng colors sa mga design mo. We also have color schemes, different color schemes using the color wheel. We have monochromatic, where it uses one color and plays with the value and saturation. So, for example, we have the green, we have the purple. Kapag ka nag-add ka lang ng gray dyan, kapag ka nag-add ka lang ng white dyan, yan, yun yung monochromatic colors. We also have analogous. It uses colors beside each other in the color wheel. So, for example, ito, yellow, the yellow-orange, the red, the orange, and the red. Yan. So, yun yung mga analogous colors natin. We also have complementary colors. It uses colors farthest away from the color wheel. So, usually, ito yung mga opposite colors. So, alam naman natin, di ba, kapag ka ang yellow, opposite lagi ng purple yan. Lagi rin yung ginagamit to tawag dito, to show the protagonist and antagonist of a certain, character in a movie or anime. Diba? Yellow and purple. So, meron din tayong red and blue. So, ginagamit natin yan madalas to at least show their relationship. We also have triadic colors. It uses 3 colors farthest away from each other in which makakreate ka ng triangular shape dito. So, yellow, the purple, and the red can also be combined properly. Yan. So, kapag ka-in-apply mo kasi si colors, yan, we also have what we call the psychology of colors. Yan. Depende kasi sa color na ginagamit mo, you can show or you can entice the mood of a certain scene or of a specific or a certain logo, for example. So, for example, kapag ka gumagamit ka ng colors such as related to red, yan, meaning you are enticing an excitement. Tapos, usually ginagamit ang red sa mga pagkain. Diba kung napansin natin, red and yellow in terms of the psychology of colors, ginagamit ang red and yellow to, to trigger hunger according to the psychology of colors. Mga ganyan. We also have here the orange for friendliness. Meron din tayo for green, yan, mga peaceful, balance, growth, health, mga ganyan. Blue for trust, and so on. So, since we are talking about colors here, let me show you an example application kung saan pwede nating may apply ng maayos si color wheel natin. This is a website, color.adobe.com. Yan. So, this website actually helps graphic designers to achieve a more consistent and a more balanced color na pwede nating magamit sa mga presentation, sa mga graphic design na ginagawa natin. Now, for example, I would like to create a PowerPoint presentation with, of course, related to nature. So, usually, ang ginagawa ko dyan, I can somehow use a complementary colors. Tapos, ipo-point ko lang dito sa may part na to. So, it automatically give me a color na pwede kong magamit doon sa PowerPoint presentation ko. So, pwedeng itong part na to ang maging background ko. Ito yung magiging foreground ko, for example, sa mga font ko. And that is really possible using this one. So, ganun po siya. Napaka-equal or consistent. So, kung gusto mong magamit yung color mo ngayon, so, turuan ko kayo. Halimbawa, gusto mong magamit tong color na to, you can just simply go to, for example, sa Paint. A lot of editing softwares have this kind of feature in which you can manipulate the colors. So, pwede ka ngayon ditong mag-enter ng colors. So, in this case, titignan mo lang yung HSV value niya. Ito. So, this is 120. Yan. 120, 245, 171. Tapos, this is actually the saturation. Iusod natin. 120, 240, 171. 120. Nagalaw ko. 240. 171. Ayan. So, papansin natin, i-adjust ko lang din yung color na ito. So, pwede na kayo ngayon gumamit ng mga ganito. So, itong sa Paint nga lang, hindi masyadong nagpapakita ng sakto yung gusto natin, no? Pero, hindi ko kasi ma-adjust dito sa Paint itong black and white niya na part. So, basically, you got the idea, di ba? So, pwede mo na siyang magamit. So, dito, 120, 240, 171. Ayan. Siguro, yan, kamukha na, no? So, you can just simply add this one to custom colors. Tapos, pwede na natin siyang magamit. Ayan. So, kung gusto mo namang gamitin ito as a foreground, just simply add color. Tapos, gayahin mo lang yung RGB values niyan, magiging sakto na yan. Diba? So, magiging sakto na yung color niyan. Ayan, diba? So, actually, maganda to eh. Magandang practice to para sa atin. Para matuto tayo kung paano gumamit ng mas maayos na colors. Diba? So, diba? Ayan, gumagawa ka ng mga basic na poster. Usually, you can use this website to decide on what specific color would you like to use. Now, if you are really having some problems choosing some colors, you can just simply explore. Yan. Pwede ka kasi ditong magtingin ng mga sample color palettes na pwede mong magamit. Yan. Or, you can just simply check the trends, kung ano nga ba yung mga different trends ng colors nowadays. So, it can be sa part ng fashion. Yan. Kung napansin nyo, kapag halimbawa, graphic designer kayo, pwede kayong pumunta dito sa may graphic design na part and you can just simply choose whatever color palettes na gusto nyo gamitin. Ayan. You also have like for architecture, for game design, and so on. Ganun din pag libraries, no? Ayan. So, pwede ka lang din mag-login dito. Ayan, yun yung website na yan. So, I hope magagamit natin to, especially sa may performance task natin by the end of this lesson. Alright, so let's go back to our discussion here. Yan, tapos na tayo sa tinatawag natin na color as the first element of graphic design. Yan. Next is what we call the line. Line is also an element of graphic design. So when we say line, it can be used to add some structure to a specific composition. It can also be used to frame an information and divide those different information na meron tayo. So for example, ito, you can use line to stress a word. You can also use line to divide the information such as in magazines. Yan. You can also use line to add a structure na tinatawag natin. Yan. Elegance. Diba? So yan, yun yung line naman. Another element here is what we call the shape. Shape has two dimensions, the width and the height. When we place shapes together, it can make a relationship. So it's a basis of text and figures. So it can be used in color, it can be used as a line, it can also be used as a negative space. And so we have different shape types. We have geometric. We also have organic. And so shapes can be applied to create other structures. Say for example, yan, yung mga, ito, di ba, 3-point yung value ng pi, nakakreate ka ng circle. Tapos just simply using shapes, nakakreate ka ng other form naman. It can also be used to create some patterns or textures as well. Yan. Next is what we call form. When we say form, it's a shape. Pero this time, it's 3-dimension. Ang shape kasi more on 2D lang, di ba? Width and height. Kapag ka-form, meron ka ng depth ngayon. So, it gives a more 3D feel. It also gives more distinct look and feel. So, meron din tayong different types ng forms. We have geometric. Yan, uses basic 3D shapes. And we also have organics, in which uses elements from the nature. Yan. Next, another element here is what we call the texture. Ang texture kasi, this time, it's the way a surface feels. So, it can create visual tones and attract some elements. It gives 3D feel as well, kagaya rin ng form. Pero ito kasi ang texture, nakikita to pag mga physical na design, di ba? Mga physical graphic design or physical na painting. Kasi texture meaning, we can literally touch and we can literally feel. Yan, yung element na to sa may painting natin. Although, it's not very much used in graphic design kasi nga medyo may kahirapan siyang execute and it somehow conflicts with the simplicity principle. Pero, if marunong kayong gumamit or mag-apply ng mga textures sa mga design natin, it can be possible. It can also give another look doon sa may graphic design na ginawa natin. And we also have different types of texture. We have image texture. It comes from the nature. We have environmental, man-made, and biological. We also have pattern texture, in which the image is done several times. Yan. It can also biological, tapos man-made as well. Another element of graphic design here is what we call the typography, in which it explicitly states the information. Yan. So, pag sinabi nating typography, this is actually the font and typefaces na meron tayo. So, yeah. So, we have sans serif, different types of typography. Sans serif, serif, decorative, and script. So, tingnan nyo ang difference nila ni sans serif and serif. So, we have, pag serif, medyo may buntot-buntot siya, di ba? Kapag sans serif, medyo plain lang siya. We will actually talk about more on this one pagdating natin sa module number 8 natin, in which I'll talk about multimedia. So, for now, i-ano ko muna to, pasadahan muna natin to. Yan, decorative and script. Typography can be used for functional reasons. Say for example, for book, magazines. It can also be used for decorative purposes such as kinetic typography na tinatawag natin, yung mga moving naman na texts natin. Yan. It can also be used for branding, di ba? For logo, mga ganyan. Next is what we call space. Another element of graphic design here is a space, in which talks about the visual essence and dynamic of a composition. Meron tayong negative space, in which the negative space here is actually the part or the space, the negative space of a specific design. Ito yung part ng hindi mo nalalagyan masyado ng design. Negative. Pagka-positive naman, dito nakalagay lahat ng design. Although, the space can be applied for proximity. Yan. It can also be applied to overlap some elements. It can also be applied to adjust the transparency or opacity of a certain element. Yan. And also, to adjust the light and shadow. Tapos meron din tayong perspective. So, ang space kasi napaka-importante rin po na alam natin kung saan natin ipi-place lahat ng elements. Okay? Hindi porke gumagawa kayo ng poster, lalagay nyo na lahat ng gusto nyong pictures or images or clip arts kung saan-saan sa mismong design nyo. Take note, say for example, just looking at this presentation that we have here, we have here the positive spaces in which yan, yung mismong border lang natin. Pero most of the time, I am utilizing the negative space kasi I always prefer, the simplicity principle of graphic design. So, the simple, the better. Yan. So, be mindful of the spaces na ginagawa mo or yung ginagawa mo sa isang graphic design mo. Okay, so those are the different elements of graphic design. Now, let's talk about what we call the principles of graphic design. Ang principle naman, it focuses more on the word design. Ang elements kanina, more on the graphic, so usually the visual side. Ang design naman, yan, it focuses more on the principle itself. So let's talk about the first principle of graphic design here. This is what we call the contrast. Alam natin ang definition ng contrast, diba? Lagi natin itong naririnig. It makes something visually interesting and it organizes those information. It can be used to differentiate colors, yan, space, shape, and typography as well. So, halimbawa ito, yung color natin, we have black, we have white, and the black. Diba? The space or the sizes itself, we have the medium-sized circle and the larger, then two different medium-sized circles. Contrasting. Now, pagdating naman sa mga poster, you can apply contrast sa poster na, halimbawa dito, diba? So, sa new musical Wicked, ito. Wicked, a new musical. Gumamit siya ng contrast, black and white, kung napapansin nyo. Tapos green and a flash as well. Same goes through with this poster, black and white, tapos red, diba? Nag-contrast sila pareho. Ayan. We also have what we call hierarchy. It's used with the contrast. And hierarchy shows the important information first. Usually, ang hierarchy kasi ina-apply yan kapag gusto mong i-emphasize ang isang subject sa mismong poster mo or graphic design mo. So, you can apply hierarchy in terms of color. So, kung gusto mong maipakita agad yung element na yun, you use hierarchy in color, you use hierarchy in space, you use hierarchy in shape, and so on. Kagaya nito, di ba? Sa mga posters na meron tayo. For example, the Star Wars poster, it applies hierarchy in such a way na si Darth Vader, siya yung nandito sa taas, di ba? It simply signifies na enemy siya, tapos pababa na with the supporting characters. Sa middle, is actually the main protagonist, and so on. Ganon din dito sa poster na to na high-rise. Diba? So, it shows hierarchy as well. The main character, tapos the supporting characters, and of course, yun. And same goes through with this poster, 1984. Diba? Hierarchy. So, ito usually kung ano yung una mong nakikita sa isang design. So, kapag tumingin ka sa design, ano yung una mong nakikita? Diba? Pag dito, ito ang nakikita mo. Pag ito, ang nakikita mo agad yung triangle. Pag ito, ang nakikita mo agad yung Darth Vader. So, ganun ang hierarchy. Next principle is what we call the alignment. Alignment helps organize and clump those information. So, it can be in the form of left aligned, center aligned, and right aligned. So, lagi natin itong ginagamit, especially kapag gumagawa tayo ng mga Microsoft Word document, diba? Alignment. We are trying to align those elements in a specific design. A work may be devalued if there is no alignment. So, tignan natin ang application ng alignment sa mga poster na to. We have here the Italian Job, alignment, left and right. Ito. Ganon din kay Captain America, Civil War. Diba? Alignment, ayun na. In center, inalign si Team Iron Man and Team Captain America sa right and left side ng screen natin. And Ocean's 8, yan. Obviously, gumamit din siya ng alignment. Iniline sila. And also hierarchy. Yan. So, pwede mo kasing i-combine ang different principles ng graphic design. We also have here balance. When we say balance, it's the distribution of elements in a space. So, it can be done with alignment. There are two ways on how to achieve this. Symmetrical, meaning equal distribution, or asymmetrical, unequal distribution. Let's take a look at this example here for symmetrical applications or symmetrical na balance natin sa mga posters. So, symmetrical kasi nga pareho, equal sila. Diba? Same goes through with this poster here. Then, properly placed in the middle. Tapos, balance siya. Also, the Season 3 of Attack on Titan. Kung napapansin nyo yung hati, pag ganyan yan. Yung golden rule natin dito. Ayan. So, balance na balance siya. Meanwhile, ang mga asymmetrical balance, hindi porke asymmetrical e pangit. It can be used to achieve unique designs as well. Kagaya nito. Diba? Hindi siya in the middle, but rather nandito siya sa may left side. Pero okay lang. Same goes through with the Bohemian Rhapsody movie and this movie as well. Ganda. Asymmetrical sila lahat. Next, proximity. When we say proximity naman, it's the way on how you group similar items together. It can also form one cohesive group, and it shows the importance of different information. Such as, for example, ito. This cover here simply groups dito, gumamit to ng alignment, ng balance as well. So, dito sa part dito sa my right side, it shows the heroes and it shows the anti-heroes. Ganon din dito sa Transformers, it shows the Transformers and the humans. Diba? So, proximity. Kumbaga, ginugroup mo sila together. Same goes through here. It uses hierarchy as well. Tapos yung mga bida natin and the supporting casts. So, yun yung proximity. It's the way on how you group similar items together. We also have repetition. Ang repetition kasi, also known as consistency, it's the way on how you organize those information and unify the parts of the design. So, for example, dito sa may application natin, yan, diba, repetition, big sabihin paulit-ulit. You are repeating the same patterns, the same images, the same elements. Yan, so inception, diba? Tapos yung ugly truth natin. So, repetition. Kung titignan natin, this can also be in, balance was also applied here. Alignment was also applied. Dito naman, hierarchy, na-apply din. Next is movement. Ang movement naman, it's actually the way on how you arrange the elements to make a moving piece. And it can add dynamism to certain piece. Ito. Diba? So, pagka naglagay ka ng parang effect na gumagalaw siya, yan. So, futurism, Olympic Games, London. So, this is sailing, pero nag-create siya ng parang gumagalaw. Same goes through with Rocky. Ito. Kay Sylvester Stallone. Para siyang stairs, para rin siyang footsteps yan na pinanggalingan niya to achieve greatness. That's movement. And we have what we call the simplicity. Ang simplicity naman, from the word itself, simple, di ba? It's the discipline of minimizing and refining or editing back a design. So, it can also be used to avoid an overwhelming amount of visual elements. For example, itong poster natin na Inception. Kung napanood nyo na yung movie, magigets nyo agad ang ibig sabihin na itong Inception na to, di ba? Pero, if you are planning to make this poster into a very simple one, you can just simply use this element here. Yan. Simplicity or minimalism na tinatawag natin. Maganda itong movie na to eh. And same goes through with Iron Man. Yung arc reactor niya. Tapos yung 500 Days of Summer. And the Batman. Yan. Diba? And lastly, we have the last principle here in which we call the function. When I say function, this is the way on how you consider the main objective for a graphic work. Kumbaga, ito yung pinaka-purpose mo kung bakit ka gumagawa ng graphic design or ng specific poster. What is the specific message are you trying to express or trying to convey to your readers, to your viewers? Diba? It's the way on how well a design is executed and explored. Your ultimate goal here is to communicate and make an impression. Yun nga. So, it can also give the right impression and and the outcome was actually achieved. So, ganun yun. Kapag gumagawa ka kasi ng isang painting, isang graphic design, you have to consider the message behind that. Diyan papasok ngayon yung tinatawag natin na function as a principle of graphic design. Alright? So, those are the elements and the different principles of graphic design na meron tayo. So, let's actually talk about the different graphic design trends here. So, tingnan natin yung mga graphic design trends pagmula noon. So, we have number 1, minimalism. Ito, di ba? Ang minimalism, obviously, it uses the simplicity principle. Di ba? Because less is actually more. Less is more attractive. Ako, personally, I prefer minimalism artworks, minimalism posters. Kasi, number 1, it's easy to execute. Number 2, it saves time. Pero, yun nga, number 3, medyo challenging siyang gawin. Kasi, you are applying or you are trying to make everything as simple as possible na hindi nawawala yung concept or yung function nung poster na ginagawa mo. That's minimalism. We also have here, yan, yung characteristic ng minimalism. Observation of the negative space and the positive space. Kung napansin nyo, this is a positive space and this alone is the negative space. So, it uses much more negative space than the positive. It's a way on how you remove the texture and form. In minimal use of colors, usually 2 or 3 colors lang siya, and the information is presented explicitly. And so we also have vector-based images, minimalism. It's the way on how you simplify the complicated figures. Yan, halimbawa to, mga minimalistic avatars. It uses solid colors, basic shapes, tapos lack of shadow and highlight. So basically mga plain colors lang siya, pero tingnan nyo, mas maganda siyang tingnan. Para sa akin, mas na-attract talaga ako sa mga vector-based images. Yung mga minimalistic approach. Yes, this is minimalism kasi it uses a certain amount of colors lang. Yan. Next, we have the different color palettes. Ito, nabanggit ko kanina. Color palettes. So, we have ultraviolet, neon bright, duotone, muted pastels, metallics, and vintage. So, using the color.adobe.com na website kanina, you can simply identify the palettes na trending or gusto nyong gamitin for a specific poster. Yan. We have the following trends of color palettes from last 2019 we have salmon as a Pantone color of the year. Ang 2018 ultraviolet. Yan. Meron tayong mga bright neon colors. Tapos meron din tayong mga duotone kagaya sa mga ganyan album. Muted pastel colors like this. Metallic pastel colors. Vintage colors. Diba? And so on. So, tignan natin kung ano nga ba yung mga Pantone Color of the Year natin. Pantone Color of the Year 2022, it's very peri, meaning yung parang may pagka-violet siya eh. Yan. Nung last year, 2021, yellow. Pero this is, pangalan na nga ba nito? Ultimate Gray and Illuminating. And so, nung 2020, pwede nyo makita kung ano yung mga Pantone Color of the Year. Classic Blue. So, nagbabago yan every year. For your awareness na din. Next, we have animation as a graphic design trend. It's a way on how texts are moving. Yan, mostly vector-based sila. Yan. We also have motion graphics. Ginagamit to sa mga, di ba, mga intro, mga YouTube channel, ganyan, moving images and logos. Yan. Kinetic typography, it's actually moving texts. Yan. Abstractionism and geometric patterns, it use a series of shapes like yun nga yung mga triangles and so on. It used for backgrounds and characters. Yeah, meron din tayong low poly art. It uses a series of shapes, usually triangles as well, to create a certain piece. Magandang gawin to eh, matagal lang. Ganyan. We also have double exposure. Result of 2 or more images being exposed on the same piece of a film. And we also have glitch. Ito yung glitch naman ng Attack on Titan before. Ayan. It's the art of, digitally corrupting an images. Diba? So, Attack on Titan nung dati, yung ending niya. Ayan. So, those are an example of glitch. And we have paint splatter. It's a photo manipulation technique in which, it adds paint splatters to the sides of the subject. It can create a rougher look. Kagaya na ito. Ayan. So, if you are trying to consider a career in graphic design, let's actually talk about the different pros and cons. Number one, graphic design is, of course, you have to be creative. Pero yun nga, fun din yan, pero challenging. And the good thing about graphic design as well, it's more on, it's educational because every time na gumagawa ka ng specific project mo, natututo ka pa rin eh. You are still earning and, gaining skill every project na meron ka. It can contain multiple creative disciplines as well. And of course, graphic design is something you can show off for your hard work. It's also a way to express yourself. It's also rewarding, not only financially, but then, as a person, personally din, kasi nga, it can be considered as your artwork. Yan. Graphic design can also be collaborative. So, you can work with other graphic designers as well, kung may mga kakilala kayo. Yan. Career prospects. Marami din po ang career sa pagiging graphic design. Pagiging graphic designer. So, those are the different pros na pwede mo i-consider when you are choosing a career or if you're planning to be a graphic designer. Mga cons naman niya, location specific. Not all countries are, fond of graphic designing. Isa na dyan ang Philippines, di ba? So, medyo mababa kasi ang value ng mga graphic designer dito. Well, in fact, sa ibang bansa like the West, mataas sila magbigay ng bayad sa mga graphic designers natin. And also, it's competitive. There are a lot of graphic designers as well. So, maraming competition. Pagandahan niya ng mga portfolio. The road is long because graphic design is not all about editing. It's all about mastering the principles as well. Yan. Road is long. Mahaba-haba talaga yan. Learning creative software tools. It's required to be technical kasi dapat alam mong gamitin yung mga tools na meron. Limbawa, kung wala kang Adobe Photoshop doon sa computer na gagamitin mo, you should know how to use other software tools related to graphic design. Finding the right job can be hard as well. It's a test job. Kung hindi ka sanay na nakaharap ng sa computer, parang kami, di ba? Hindi para sa iyo ito. Yan, long hours, hindi lang siya pindot-pindot lang. Okay, graphic design is a passion. Usually more than 10 hours or more than pa nga ang na Google natin para dito. Yan, you have to work under pressure as well because it's you have to deal with different clients and sometimes they keep on pressuring you sa mga deadlines and of course sa mga revisions sa pinapakita nito. And you have to do things that you do not want and working under others' direction. And so you can also deal with a very bad client, which is a very bad thing to experience as well. So those are the things that you need to or you might want to consider when choosing a career or considering a career in graphic design. So if you're planning to be a certified graphic designer, ako po, ito, meron tayong NC2 or NC3 in visual graphic design under TESDA. So if you're planning to have this kind of certification, pwede po kayo lumapit sa TESDA para makakuha ng NC na to, kagaya nito. Usually, the validity of this one is 5 years and you have to take an exam, written and application exam in which yun, mag-edit kayo. Tapos, gagawa kayo ng mga booth, for example, ganun, gagawa kayo ng logo, and so on. So, may interview din dito. It's very rewarding kasi once na na-approve kayo nakakuha kayo ng certification or national certificate ng graphic design, that simply means that You can actually work abroad, that's number one. And at the same time, dagdag points to sa mga clients. So kapag ka nakita nila kasi na, alam mo yun, graphic designer ka, at least kahit pa paano, matutuwa sila. And they will have this kind of peace of mind na i-hire ka doon sa mga sa mga projects na meron. So, ako personally, this is one of my side job. So, dito po ako mas kahit pa paano, mas malaki ang kita sa mga graphic design except Filipino clients. So, kapag may ganito kayo, mas maganda po. Mas madadagdagan yung chances na makakuha kayo ng mga clients online. Lalo na itong pandemic, mas dumami sila. Okay? So, you can be a graphic designer basta alam nyo lang yung mga ginagawa ninyo. Alright, so lastly, let's talk about the different skills. Ito, kung talagang seryoso kasi kayo na gusto nyo maging graphic designer in the future, you have to consider the following skills. Of course, you should have or you should be good in verbal communication. Magaling ka rin dapat mag-drawing and sketching. You also have to research with the different software skills, time management, and you should have attention to detail as well. Napaka-importante po na itong mga to sa practical skills ng graphic design. For psychological skills, on the other hand, you have to be more objective. Yan. You should have a creative discipline and judgment. You should be confident and you are always ready to receive criticism. Kasi napakadami pong competition sa graphic design. So, the critics will always be there. So, napakadami yan. So, you should be very optimists pagdating dito. You have to be ready to cope up with some failures because not all the time success ang magiging project mo. And you have to be determined. Tapos, team player ka din, meaning you can work with teams and you have this kind of patience. Napakahaba dapat ng pasensya mo. Diba? So, psychological skills yan. And talents. Kailangan mo rin may mga talent ka dito. Siyempre, you should be imaginative. Malawak ang imagination and curiosity mo. You're also open-minded. Diba? So, ibig sabihin, pag open-mindedness natin, ibig sabihin, even those kinds of detail, like explicit details, you should be you should be ready sa mga ganun. Kasi may mga clients na nag-request talaga ng mga explicit details. Ayan. You have to be passionate as well. You also have to have a conceptual thinking. Tapos magaling ka rin sa problem solving. Ayan. You should also harness creativity and craftsmanship as well. So if you are considering to be a graphic designer, there are some books na pwede mong mabasa. Ayan. Para dito. Diba? So, we also have the following essential equipments and accessories sa graphic design natin. So, ito mga ano lang pagka-sketching kapag ka mga more on physical. Diba? So, pag animation student ka, usually ginagamit din yan. Pero kapag ka nandun ka na sa may part ng digital, so, syempre, kailangan mo ng camera, computer, scanner, at least a pen tablet. Yeah, medyo magastos po and kailangan mo mag-invest din talaga sa mga gamit. Especially sa computer pa lang. The faster the processing speed of your computer, the better. Kaya nga natin discuss din yung mga components ng computers natin. Kasi if you're planning to be a graphic designer, this is actually one way for us to be ready sa part na yon. Ayan. So that's actually the end of my presentation. So do you have any questions so far?